We've seen a lot of good come from the movement control order in Malaysia. In spite of all the restrictions, we've seen God bring humanity closer, families spending more time together, and kind hearts giving to the less fortunate. We have many things to thank God for, especially for all the frontliners, from doctors to nurses to admin staff and the cleaners. As the number of infections and deaths gradually drop, restrictions begin to loosen, we place our hope and trust in His mercy. As we present this song, Betapa Hatiku, from the Catholics at Home Virtual Choir.
Betapa hatiku berterima kasih Tuhan, Kau mengasihiku,
Kau memilikiku.
Hanya ini Tuhan persembahanku, segenap hidupku, jiwa dan ragaku. Takkan ku miliki harta kekayaan
Yang sungguh berarti ku persembahkan. Hanya ini Tuhan permohonanku, terimalah Tuhan persembahanku. Pakailah hidupku sebagai alatmu seumur hidupku.
Betapa hatiku berterima kasih Tuhan, Kau mengasihiku, Kau memilikiku.
Hanya ini Tuhan persembahanku,
Segenap hidupku, jiwa dan ragaku.
takkan ku miliki harta kekayaan yang cukup berarti untuk persembahkan.
Hanya ini Tuhan permohonanku,
Terimalah Tuhan persembahanku.
pakailah hidupku sebagai alatmu seumur hidupku. Hanya ini Tuhan persembahanku, segenap hidupku, jiwa dan ragaku.
Takkan ku miliki harta kekayaan
Berarti tubuh persembahkan.
hanya ini Tuhan permohonanku. Terimalah Tuhan persembahanku. Pakailah hidupku sebagai alatmu seumur hidupku. Pakailah hidupku sebagai alatmu seumur hidupku.
Seumur hidupku.
and welcome to another Saturday live show on Catholics at Home. My name is Kachang Kevin, and on behalf of the team, we'd like to thank you for taking this time and spending it with us this Saturday morning. I'm sure there's lots you can do on a Saturday morning, so we'd like to make sure that we're trying to get the best guests that we can find on the show so that it's worth your time. And I'm sure most of you are aware and you know who our guest is this morning. Right now, we're keeping her backstage for a while as more and more people are logging into the show. So for those of you, if you're on right now, hey, why don't you tell us where you're watching this from? You know, just type in the chat box. You know, we're also streaming on the ArchKL platforms. So just let us know where you're watching this from, maybe which parish you come from. We'd like to know who's watching us and where you're watching this from. All right. So just let us know. In the meantime, I'd like to say good morning to Philomena, Hilary, let's see, Patrick, Max, Sue, thank you for joining us this morning. You know, what you can do is, you know it's going to be an exciting show because of our guests, right? So just share this out, you know, start a watch party or share this out. There's a share button on your Facebook page. Share it out to your friends, your family members, and, you know, we'll have a good time for the next 1 hour. So please do that for us. Once again, thank you for joining us and a very good morning to you. Mark Darren Lee is producing the show. So if you have any questions or comments for our guests later on, please do type them in the comments box and we'll screen them. And hopefully, if we have time, we'll address some of the issues that we're talking about. In the meantime, let me introduce or bring on the very thoughtful and reflective Father Clarence Devadass. Good morning,
Kevin.
Father.
Good morning, Kevin.
How are you doing?
Very good, Kevin. I'm well, thank you. As I said,
All right.
life is getting back a bit normal, so getting a bit more busy now.
Yeah, getting back.
We have missed you too because you're busy also.
Yeah, exactly. You know, sometimes the timing doesn't match, and you know, so unfortunately, but thank goodness that you and Mark have been carrying on the show, and it's been quite interesting in the past couple of weeks when I'm not around. But I'm sure, Father, you're looking forward to our conversation this morning as we have a parliamentarian with a big heart and what is definitely a huge mission in stemming out racism and sexism in our society. Well, her quest for truth and justice was not only molded by her father, the late P. Patto, but also by her faith and conviction. This morning, Catholics at Home has all access to YB Kasthuri Patto. Good morning, YB.
Hi, good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Father.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you so much for spending the time, taking the time to be with us this morning. Really honored to have you on the show.
No, the honor is mine, really. It's not often, you know, but then, yeah, thank you. Thank you for thinking of me and remembering.
Thank you. Now, YB, I don't think an hour is enough to talk about your life and journey as a parliamentarian and all the issues that you're passionate about. But before we get into the serious conversation, correct me if I'm wrong, you're also passionate about the Liverpool Football Club. Is that right?
Oh, yes. Yes, I am.
Okay, this is something I don't want to hear anymore already.
That's
So, you know,
the truth hurts sometimes, Father. Yeah.
we'll be polite. We'll be polite, and we will. We're very happy for you. Congratulations to Liverpool. You know, we're not really happy with the outcome, Father and I, but then we're happy for you. And you know, as we agreed, 30 years gives you just 30 seconds to talk about Liverpool.
Oh, come on, really? You fumbled on that.
What do you like about Liverpool, YB?
Oh, just I started watching and following Liverpool and their matches when I was a teenager, and then just followed through. I always found the way the players back in those days, Robbie Fowler and that gang, you know, the way they played and apart from. Yeah, then again, a lot of my friends also were Manchester United supporters, so that just drove me further in, you know, to be more of a Liverpool fan. But apart from that, it's just the way they've played, their history. Yeah, it's quite impressive. Mm.
So looks
Oh,
like
yes,
Mark,
you'll never walk alone. Like,
our
everyone
administrator has hijacked this whole conversation and started putting his own comments now. Yeah, fine.
Unfortunately, Father, he has the control for the for all this, so we can't do anything about it.
Fortunately. Yeah.
Yeah,
Your
we saw
family
it.
too are Liverpool fans?
Sorry?
Your family too are Liverpool fans?
Oh, we have a mix, but majority are Liverpool fans. Mm. But mix, yeah. Sorry, father.
As I as I told Mark, no, after winning the Premier League for 13 times, I think you kind of got tired a bit. So let's share the joy with others too.
Oh, I'm sure. How gracious of y'all.
Sharing is caring, huh?
That's what Barney says.
All right. Once again, welcome to everybody who's joined us. We'd like to say hi to Stephen, Angeline. Yes, good morning, everybody. So just let us know if you have any questions for YB later on. We'll try and get them addressed, bring them on the show. So just type in the comments box, all right? But in the meantime, Father Clarence, maybe we can begin talking with YB about her background and her growing up years. What was it like? Of course, we know your father was a senior politician as well. So let's talk a bit about your background, how you grew up in that environment of your father being a politician as well. Did that encourage you?
Oh yeah, I think I was privileged to grow up in a home where my father was a politician, but having a mother who is also very politically sharp and politically involved as well helped. No doubt, mom ran the house, taking care of me, my sister, and her parents. But I think at a young age, my sister and I had already been exposed to charamas and rallies, and it was a different time in the 80s and the 90s. It was a different era. It was a different political scenario with different forms of enforcement also. All those years standing in front of a shopping mall and trying to sell the Rocket newspaper to people, and everyone's just so scared to buy the Rocket paper in case somebody takes a picture of them having the paper in their hand. It was that sort of an era to go for rallies, to listen to my father speak, to look at the faces of the people who came for those charamas and rallies, so full of hope and just taking in every bit of information that the leaders were giving them on abuse of power, mismanagement, injustice, etc. So it sort of opened my eyes a lot. So that's why I say I'm privileged. I don't know if many of my other friends would have seen it. Some may have experienced it, but it certainly stirred something in my heart ever since I was young. I remember following my father on a campaign trail in 1990 to Sungai Siput, and I just couldn't believe the way some of the families were living. I mean, we lived modestly, just comfortable, never big bungalow houses and all that, nothing like that. But I saw families that was far worse than the way we lived. And I couldn't understand this sort of a social injustice. Like, how is it that some people have everything and more than what they actually need, and some just live on very little and just the bare minimum? And that made me question, this inequality. And yeah, so perhaps that would have been the first eye opener. I saw a lot of political violence in that time. I saw a lot of thuggish thuggish behavior in politics. And being female, I never actually looked at myself as a girl, as a female pushing for any of my ideas or reforms or agendas, but more of just as a person. But as I grew older, I started to see the inequality even between gender. I started to see the social expectations. I started to see the social impositions, and then it stirred an awakening. So growing up, I told myself I don't want to be part of just sitting and watching things happen. I want to be part of the movement. I want to be part of the race. I want to be in the where the action is. And yeah, so that's why I said, no lah, I'm not an armchair sort of critic, sitting behind watching and making comments, but just to be right in the middle of it, in the eye of the storm. Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sure
in
you.
terms of
Yeah.
growing up, I mean, where was this? I mean, where did you grow up? Ipoh.
I grew up in Ipoh. I spent the first few years of my babyhood, in the Gopeng, in Kopisan. So Lawan Kuda, Kopisan are very familiar places even till today. And then we moved to Ipoh town and we lived there, and that's where I got my kindergarten, primary, secondary school education, from Marine Convent to Main Convent to St. Michael's. Yeah, and it was then in 1995 that because Dad won the Parliament constituency seat in Penang, that we were in the midst of moving to Penang because it's always encouraged, even though a lot of them say that MPs need not stay in their constituencies because they are national lawmakers, they can live anywhere, but you remember that your constituents elected you. We have a different voting system in Malaysia, so your constituents get to vote you. Your nation, it's not that the people of the nation voted you, but only for your constituency. So it's your duty to be there or at least be near to look into their needs, etc. So we were in the midst of moving to Penang, and then he passed on. So we kind of got all the barang back, and then yeah. So the family house is still in Ipoh. Yeah.
I just wanted to add on just now that talking about that moment when you realized that you wanted to serve the rakyat of that incident in Sungai Siput. But I'm sure your father supported you throughout your journey in this. I suppose what was his advice to you at the very start?
Actually, my father passed away when I was just 2 weeks shy of turning 16. So obviously at that age, you may not have had your whole life mapped out already. Like, this is really what I want to do. Even though my heart was, I loved biology. I like medicine, and so that's why I graduated with a degree in microbiology and not in political science or law or something like that. But my heart was with this. This is because it came very naturally. Like, I didn't need to read up on what I could see social injustice. I could see abuses of power. I could see real injustices. I could see mismanagement of public funds rather. So yeah, I didn't need to read to understand that in my heart. I just knew it and I felt it. But having lost your father when you're 16, and then having to be raised by a single parent like my mom, meant that she took over the role of my father in giving me the sort of support that I needed, even to enter into politics. So yeah, but I think my father's advice to me came in the form of his action. I observed and I saw with my own eyes how he was with his party comrades, how he was with the people, I read and saw pictures of him going to Geneva speaking about the abuse of human rights that was happening in Malaysia, the curtailing of freedom of speech, the right to dissent, etc. And then I also saw him like standing on a table in a coffee shop, like any Chinese coffee shop, and just standing and speaking to a crowd of uncles and aunties who were just, they would laugh away when he poked fun and, just, yeah, teased other politicians in the country. So it made me, he really didn't, in my eyes, my father wasn't a leader of any particular group or type of people or, a kelompok of people, but, he was just appealing to everyone. And it's so wonderful. Like when I go to Kota Baru in Kelantan, I have people asking me, "Are you Patu's daughter?" Oh, he came and spoke here in the 70s, and he really knew the Malay culture, the Malay, the budi bahasa, the kesopanan sort of, and also that little bit of like how, they touch their head when they say something and they say, he did that. And for us, we were like, wow, this Indian man doing all these things, that's very Malay. And then I go to Sabah and Sandakan and someone says, oh, your father came and stayed in my office because they didn't have money to pay for even a hotel or even a budget hotel at that time. So I said, Patu, if you want, you can use my office to stay, and just a mattress on the floor and that's it, and yeah, so these are the sort of stories I hear from others who show, a side of my father, but also a side that I never saw. So yeah, mom gave a lot of support. My family gave a lot of support as well. Yeah.
And you say that you have a sister. Is she also inclined into issues of justice, just like you are? I mean,
she is. She is, but she has a family.
Okay.
I'm a proud auntie to two nieces, the apples of my eye, my jewels. But my sister assists me in any way that she can. When I need something to be done, I normally just ask her, can you please look this up for me and all that. So yeah, she's in touch, so she is very politically sharp. In fact, sometimes I would feel sharper than me. But juggling between being a full-time mother, taking care of the kids, which is, far more strenuous than a job of an MP, I think. Because it's a 24-hour job as well. So, but she does help, and she is politically inclined as well as together.
I think one thing that I guess I always look at is, people seem to think that politics and faith it's like oil and water. They don't mix. There are people who think that way. But for you, I mean, being a Catholic, and I know your parish, Holy Name of Mary in Pematang Tinggi, we give them a shout out this morning. But how do you bring this together? How do you see your faith and what you do, your conviction? It's your faith as the foundation, or helping you in what you do.
I think, Father, perhaps the question, because you're comparing politics, which has different types of politics, there are many countries and nations that subscribe to different ideologies of what politics is. You have your, imperialists and capitalists, socialists and communists, etc. And then all the new words that have come up over the last 10 years, these jargons. But faith has been steadfast from day one until today. If at all we have deepened our understanding of what faith is, what the teachings are, what the word is, but politics and the ideologies have changed over time. So I can understand why sometimes when you say it's like oil and water, it is true, because it is transcending over time, and it has changes. But the principles and this and what faith entails is cemented. It's not something that it's volatile, or it can change. Or today you say yes to this. If it's a crime today, then tomorrow it's not a crime anymore. But in politics, that has changed. But for me, my faith is my compass, and I find it easy, because there is no book that I need to refer to, unless like if you're talking about the word of God, but that's different. But it's not that I have my code of conduct is my faith. How I deal with issues, how I approach situations is my faith. And that is really like a fish to water for me. I just have to ask myself, if I just feel 1 ounce of doubt in my heart about something, I know that is my conscience, and I know that is the voice that is speaking, telling me, hang on, hold on, maybe you want to think about it again. So sometimes I often, when it comes to making very difficult decisions, I pray very hard about it and tell God, just please give me a sign, show me a way out, give me wisdom, give me discernment. But it's not easy, Father, because sometimes, time is really of essence. So sometimes you're so caught up in the moment that you don't pray early enough before like sometimes I just pray seconds before I go on stage or in parliament, and then I kick myself and say, why didn't I, I should have spent more time. But I know God knows what's in my heart. That every day I start with prayer, and every night I end with prayer. And along the way, as I travel, for my family, for my friends, for my constituents, for my constituency, for the nation, so my list is long. But then, the faith actually keeps me grounded, Father. But it doesn't mean that I've not been in situations where I felt that I was expected to take different decisions. But sometimes you just have to be stubborn about it, and in your heart that it will pay at the end of the day. Like just a simple example, Father. In the past, may have been a culture of public money being used for political programs and events, which is a big no-no on my side and many of my colleagues. You cannot mix the two. These are taxpayers' money that must go back, not through political party means. But over time, we find people telling us, why can't you do this? Last time the government allowed it was easy, but it's difficult to deal with you in your office. You ask for so much paperwork. And I tell them, I said, because in the past, there were many parties that didn't follow guidelines properly, and that is why you all have voted for us so that we can do a clean job for you. But you still want me to subscribe to that, but you can do last time, okay, what? Easy, what? I say, when you apply for a loan at the bank, you can't tell the bank, last time my father's time, my grandfather's time was easy, what? The bank would say 3 months pay slip, or, the door is there. So things like that, father, but you have to be steadfast. You have to tell them, no, this is how it's supposed to be done, this doesn't make sense. We've had, parties coming and saying, can you sponsor this, can you sponsor that? And I say, no, I can't. And they say, yeah, but you're in government, you have so much money. I say, but it's people's money. I cannot give it for political parties. So those are some of the small things that these are the challenges, small challenges that I face, father, but there are greater challenges also sometimes. But you have to choose, you have to make a stand on things, and sometimes it's not easy.
Yeah, we'll talk about the greater challenges. Yeah.
I mean, so looks like Catholics at home now we can't ask YB for some sponsorship for our show.
I thought that was the reason we brought it on.
No.
Just kidding.
And also, as opposition, a lot of our funds have been frozen. So
I know.
we
That's
kind of,
That's not intention. It's just a little joke. Yeah, because a lot of people think. That's what people think. People engage with politicians sometimes is because they want something back. But as you know, for us, as the title of the show today is "What is Truth?" What we want back is truth. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Truth and justice. And that money cannot buy. That's something that comes from within. That comes from your own conviction.
Of course.
That's the most important thing that at least I look towards politicians, parliamentarians. I look towards that. And also the humility to say that I was wrong. Yeah, we are not perfect. We are not perfect. We make mistakes, all of us.
Yep.
And the humility to say that, I made a mistake. Yeah, and it's
I'm
acceptable.
sorry. Yes. Yeah. But I always say, father, that if you think that you want to make money in politics, then you are in the wrong job. If you think that you can be rich, if you think that it's a way out, I also have young people telling me, I want a better life. I want to join politics because, when I make that money, I want to give it back to the people. And I'm thinking, how do you make that money? That's a bit, it's a slippery slope, father, there. And I tell them, I said that, it's a 24-hour job. It's just serving. At the end of the day, when you go to the market and restaurants and people say, "Oi, boss," and we always tell them that you're the boss and we are the coolie. And people need to understand that, that we are there to serve the rakyat and serve the nation. And so if you think politics is dirty in Malaysia, then you are the ones that we need, because you know that there is a problem and it needs to be fixed. If you think, oh my gosh, politics is dirty, I don't want to be part of it, then, it's sad lah. But if you think politics is dirty, then you're the people that we need, so we can clean it up. So we can bring the right people into politics, the right men and the right women into politics. But if you think you want to make money because you have seen other politicians live that kind of a lifestyle, then this is not the job for you, really. You'll be burnt out and you will be very disappointed unless you learn from them how to do things, and then which is not right. Yeah.
What monkey sees, monkey does also.
Yeah. Yeah.
They say.
Well, certainly, eradicating corruption and all that is one of the major issues that we have here. But also for you personally, YB, we know that you're passionate about, stemming out racism and sexism. Maybe you can talk about some of the challenges that you're facing right now.
So I think it'll be apt for me to talk about what happened in the parliament 2 weeks back, where I was subjected to racial slurs and sexist remarks by another fellow parliamentarian. So, and the thing is, this is not something new. In 2012, many of the women MPs approached the speaker to amend the standing order to include the word sexism in it, so that your crime can be compartmentalized. That means it's not just unparliamentary remarks, it's not just offensive language or uncouth language, but we can also say sexist remarks had been made. But also over the years, perhaps there was actually no or rather, the norm is, once an MP utters something that is unparliamentary, then you check the Hansard the next day and the speaker makes a ruling. But it is always a retraction and an apology, which many MPs do because they want to be part of the sitting for the next few days or weeks to come. Unless the MP stands his ground and says, no, I don't want to apologize, I don't think what I said was wrong, which then could mean that he would be ejected or even suspended from the House. So that's why last week I mooted two amendments to the standing order to add in two new provisions that if an MP is found to have made uncouth, unparliamentary remarks, particularly racist or sexist remarks, they be automatically referred to the Rights and Privileges Committee for them to decide whether or not really the MP was. You have a right to be heard. It's like a little tribunal, which won't eat into the Parliament actual Dewan Rakyat time. And if you're found guilty, then a fine will be imposed. Now, I propose 500 because that's the allowance that we get. So that would be significant. Of course, it's a minimum of 500. It's just one of the first steps, but it cannot be just penalizing MPs. If in the August House, when we give our speech, we say dalam Dewan yang mulia ini, mulia. And yet all the anjing lah, babi lah, perompak lah, all that will come out. Monyet lah, all. So it has to start, somewhere, and it has to meet in the middle. The government has to move on speaking about addressing racism and sexism, and there has to be legislation on it. I mean, it's honestly, in a way, it's a step back, but it's also a step forward. Do you really need the government to tell you what you can say or cannot say after 60 years, to criminalize hate speech? By right, we should be at a point or juncture in the country where we know, oh my gosh, like it should be a minority, like just a small percentage of people who still speak like this and hurt other people. But if we need a law to do that, I don't know whether it's a step forward or back. But if you need a law, then you need a law. You have to move, and you have to move somewhere about it. But I think the other issue is also sexism. We come from very conservative, very patriarchal society, and being Asian at that also, it is just breaking glass ceilings one after another. Can you imagine? The first female mayor appointed in the world was from Iceland in 1957, the year we got our independence, and the first female mayor, or rather the Yang Dipertua head of a council, was in Penang, Datuk Maimuna, and she took office in 2008 or somewhere around there, or maybe slightly before that. But you can see the decades, how far back we are when it comes to pushing for reforms on gender equality, gender inclusiveness, even gender awareness, and that is why we've actually had two sessions in Parliament on gender sensitization for all MPs. But sometimes, the target ones are the ones who don't come for this kind of talks, so they miss out on what to speak, how to speak, and all that. But yeah, we need to start talking about it, and more, and not just mooted by politicians, because everyone thinks that politicians have an agenda. This will become your baby, and then you become a champion of it, and you'll make some international name somewhere, and then but it needs to be talked about by everyone, like here today on this platform. You have to address all the tough issues and talk about it, because sometimes it's the siege mentality. It's the majority feeling that they are like the minority, and it's always these sensitive subjects that they will tell you don't talk about it, because then it will bring up. But that's all the more reason why we should start talking about it. 100 years ago, women were not allowed to vote. They couldn't even brain the idea of females queuing up to cast their ballots to choose for leaders to represent them in the house. It was always assumed that the head of the house, which was also always assumed to be male, to be the voice of the wife, the daughter, the mother, the aunts, the grandmothers, to go as wakil. And it was like in UK, 100% all male MPs. How do you speak about adoption, women's issues, children's issues, family issues, etc., which is the core of how society is going to grow? It's a big, heavy issue, but many of them think it's not mainstream. These are soft issues. But how your society grows, how your community grows, how your nation grows, depends on how your family grows. And it's very important to be addressed by both men and women. So times have changed. 100 years ago, it was okay to punch your wife if she talked back to you. It was okay because she was treated as property. 100 years down the road, if you hit your wife, you will be in prison for that. It's a crime. You know, and now to deprive a female her right to vote is in many countries is already a crime, a violation. So it it you have to be you have while you have to be also volatile with issues, you have to also be fluid, sorry, with issues that are changing and moving and how you look at them, but you need to be steadfast with what you believe in, and that is again your faith lah. I don't know, I went around the world and came back, sorry.
No, no. I think as you were speaking, as you were saying about how women are very involved in life. I mean, the thought that's running through my mind. During the MCO, at the first phase, when only one person was allowed to go out to do house shopping, and I think the word used was ketua rumah. The ketua rumah was allowed to go out.
Yes.
And then what came up immediately was pictures of vegetables for men to choose. So. And suddenly, everybody thought the ketua rumah was the men, but we don't realize that you have ketuas for different departments in the family, actually.
Of course.
So it's not necessarily just the men.
Yeah, exactly.
Shared
And
responsibility.
that ended up on BBC, that
Oh,
that
really?
story ended up, yes, the someone shared the shopping list on social media, either on Instagram or Twitter, and I think it was also a small drawing of what the vegetable looks like. It was in pencil, just scribbled, and someone shared, and like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even know what this looks like, sort of, and that made it on BBC News.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
No,
it did.
as I was listening to you, I know, YB, one thing, you are very hands-on. You're very down to the ground. I mean, we see this, your pictures in your social media. If I were to ask you, as you go around meeting people, I'm sure you have had many experiences meeting people that have moved you. If there's one experience that I would ask you that kind of, shaped you in this recent years, you are a two-term parliamentarian. If I were to put you in the corner, I'm sure you have many experiences. But if I were to put you in the corner and say, if there's one experience that really moved you and in such a way that, it has made you rethink your role, would there be one?
There are a few Father, because they are all different in different ways and have impacted me in different ways as well. But I guess you see, you are really tested in a time of tragedy. In time of, I have a few, Father, actually. If you remember, there was a mass that was held for a young man who was murdered by the terrorists by the Abu Sayyaf terrorists. What was his name? I forgot. And they had a mass for him in SFX. It was a few years back. Yeah, that was really one of my moving moments. Because it was just, there were so many things running through my mind at that time. The value of a life. Poverty, corruption, radicalism, extremism. Your faith, and you question many things about your faith at that time. And then on the other side, you have when Penang was hit with one of the worst floods we had ever experienced in 2017. Water levels up to your chest. You see, parents holding their babies in tubs and walking through water. It was just, and at that time I lived in an apartment, and I go home and I think that, what if I was living in that taman? What if I was living in that kampung? And I came back to my dry apartment on the 17th floor, and I was like, how I couldn't sleep at night. I kept thinking about those families, and I kept thinking about my family. What if they were the ones? And so those were very, very tough times, Father. Just, looking at their faces, you don't have any answers, because it was just very high tide that day. It was a super moon. It was high tide. It was very heavy, abnormal, heavy rains, and it was just out of your hands. You just have to, when you look at their homes and how it was destroyed, how do you start after that? You know, yeah. One part of my furniture is scratched or cracked or broken, and I'm just, fussing about it for days on end, like, oh, what am I going to do? And then here you have your entire house, everything is gone. How do you start? You have children, you have your elderly parents living with you, your job, yeah. So these are some of the very, very painful times that I had experienced, being an MP. Apart from that, one of the campaigns that I've been pushing for is, of course, on the abolition of the death penalty. And that one, the turning point for me was, and I always share this story. It was a candlelight vigil for the Batu Malay brothers. A man was murdered in Seremban. Um, the brothers were charged for it, and that night when we had the candlelight vigil, because every state has a pardons board, and the pardon board reviews every case, and at the discernment or the decision of the head of the state, the Yang Dipertua, or the Sultan or the Agong even can decide, okay, I think for my birthday today I will pardon this person, or I will commute to life. That means his name will be off the Banduan Akhir. So we were hoping for some good news, and normally in Malaysia executions are on Fridays. It was a Tuesday night, I think, that we were standing outside Kajang prison, and I stood there with other activists and the families of the Batu Malay brothers. And when I looked at them, the mother was just wearing like a blouse and a sarong with a good morning towel on her shoulder. And the family members, extended family members were there. It started to drizzle. Um, and it just hit me so hard at that time, because I looked at them and I thought, here are the families of the mother's a rubber tapper from Negeri Sembilan. And the cars that were lined on the road were your Kalisa, your Maivi, your Kanchil, maybe your Wajah, and they were pleading to the government to spare the lives of their sons, not to free them maybe, but not to execute them. And it hit me so hard that you would not see four-wheel drives, Porsches, Mercedes-Benz, BMWs by the roadside. You will not see people in suits standing by the roadside at night in the rain, pleading to the government to not execute my children. Yes, if my children have committed a crime, punish them, but don't execute them, please. And then it hit me so hard that day, Father, that the ones who are 80% of those who are on death row are the ones who come from marginalized groups, the B40, they are jobless, they are odd job workers, who grew up, who have difficult families, who come from difficult neighborhoods, tough neighborhoods, and they make up the majority of those on death row. Again, if you commit a crime, you have to be punished for it. It's just that the double standard of the punishments that exist, and that was one of the things that pushed me. And I used that on many, many things that I approach also these days. The disparity, that, if you're rich and you have money and you have connections, you can literally get away with murder in this country. And that is what we need to fix, because that is the root of all the problems that we are facing today. It's the greed, it's you are blind to pain and suffering of other people, and you have no conscience. Every night you sleep, on a pillow that's full of money. So yeah, those are the things that keeps me going. So yeah, if you ask me, then these are some of the things that have really touched me. Yeah.
So I guess
Yeah.
when you do decide to retire from politics, you can write your memoirs, start collecting them, manuscript, put them together. Just before we take some questions, I know there's some interesting questions, Kevin, from our audience. We would like to have you back at some point, because the abolition of the death penalty or the capital punishment is something that even the Catholic Church is very proactive in that area, the preservation of life. So hopefully we can get you back another day. We probably talk about this, about
No problem.
death penalty, and we will try and organize that to have just a talk on that. But I think this is something that even as church, as Christians, we should be promoting, and standing up for, to preserve lives.
Yeah. Thank you, Father. Yeah, it's important to also talk about it, lah. Yeah, but then, uh, I always fear that we always keep talking and preaching to the converted. When we after the Cameron Highlands by-election, when I came back and went to the markets and all, and many people told me, "Y'all know why y'all lost Cameron Highlands?" I said, "Okay, tell me." And he said two reasons: your no smoking ban and your death penalty campaign. Really? And these are market, markets are the soul, the heart of communities. And when you go to the market, you get praised or you get scolded, and everybody talks about governments and policies in the market. So it's the best place to go and chit chat and get views and ideas, and yeah, and just to listen to people. And yeah, and I thought, if my market friends are telling me this, then it must echo the sentiment really on the ground, So yeah, it has to. So it's how you want to frame the narrative when you speak about the no smoking ban and also the death penalty, for example.
I can totally agree with you on that. But I just share one short experience and then pass it back to Kevin. On Sundays I go to Kuala Baru for mass. Just
Okay.
right in the north. And then you go to the coffee shop, the local coffee shop, and I've shared this before. It is one newspaper that's put out in the coffee shop, and then everybody takes a little. The pages all go in separate ways, so each one takes one page, they read, and they start talking, and they talk to each other what's happening in the country, and very interesting conversations and observations they make. And I've always found that very fascinating to know what's happening on the ground. So whenever I'm early there, I go to the coffee shop and I sit down and have coffee, and then small town, everybody becomes your friend immediately. So that's an interesting conversation there. Yeah, I can agree with you. The marketplace, yeah, that's where you get the feel, pulse of the people.
Yes. Yeah.
Better than social media, Father. Just go to the market.
Exactly.
Okay, well, as Father mentioned, we have some interesting questions from our viewers this morning. And we'll begin with a question from Sue De Cruz. Sue, good morning, Sue. There are some great young talents in politics these days. Digital Parliament is a great example. What plans to make them more visible to the voting public? YB.
So the system in Malaysia is, we still haven't grasped voting for independent candidates. And even though that's a little bit more popular in Sabah and Sarawak, but then it hasn't really caught on here in Peninsula, because of decades and decades of, how do I say this? Not party politics, but you when people look at a symbol or a logo, then they tie that to the struggle, the cause, and what that group or that party is fighting for, and it will take time if we're going to go in that direction. So I guess now, there's been also a bit of a movement, a campaign to talk to young people to get them to be members of political parties, because you vote in Malaysia, you still look at the logo. Sometimes many people don't even know who's the candidate or their names. But they will just say, oh no, I know this party and I know what they fight for and I know what they believe in and I support that. And therefore I will vote for the candidate because I know that candidate will also carry the voice of the party, the vision of the party in the work that he or she will do. So I believe that the MPs on Parliament Digital, who were brilliant, by the way, brilliant, shout out to them, will make a decision to align themselves with political parties, and those parties must therefore then create a platform for them to be considered or pushed or groomed to be candidates. We don't know when elections will be called. Could be this year, could be next year, or it could stretch until maximum 2023. So yeah, but I hope that the young people from Parliament Digital will hold on to their beliefs, and be a bit stubborn on it, to tell the parties that they're going to join that I believe that these are the ideals that we need to promote and push for, which is in line with the constitution, which is in line with the laws in the country, and in line with our conscience and our faith lah, rather. And parties have to take those up Sometimes those are very unpopular places to tread on, but then you must make that sort of a decision. So yeah, I think now it's more of a case of the Parliament digital MPs choosing, it's like when your grades are so good and you get offers from all universities and then you decide, oh, now you all want me, so I will choose, where I want to go. So I think now the ball is in the court of these young MPs, future MPs, to pick the parties that match their ideals, who they know that their voices will be heard, and therefore, when they become elected reps one day, then those voices will then be translated into laws and acts and policies which will be carried out in the country. Yeah.
Right, wonderful. We also have a question from Elaine Moraes. Good morning, Elaine. What is the single most important thing we can do to build common ground in our multicultural society?
Um, I I think the I think first you have to address the root of the problem, which is very old school politics of siege mentality. A lot of young people, even on Parliament Digital, and when you talk to them outside, they believe what uh, their parents, grandparents, or even leaders have shared with them or told them. If you have a leader who believes in the apartheid politics, in the apartheid system, where you must have this sort of segregation, where you must have a great differentiation between Malaysians, according to skin color, according to race, according to religion, then you grow up with that ideology in your mind and you think that that's the best, and that is what has worked. And in honesty, it has worked for 6 decades. But so I believe it must come with a change of political idea, a change of how we view our fellow Malaysians, and also it must come with some legislative changes. I was speaking to Gerald Joseph from Suhakam, and he mentioned that because they are on they always engage with the government on issues on human rights, according to what is in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And one of it was what was mooted by the National Unity of Consult and the Consultative Council, I think, the NUCC, which was to come up with like a harmony bill, and to criminalize hate speech, etc. Extensions of that. Uh, I've not heard of it yet, but I think that would be the way to go, to talk about it. What is in the Rukun Negara is very important. It's very applicable, and it's a reminder of the values that we need to hold on to as citizens of this country. But in the middle of all that, there are groups that always try to push for their own personal agendas. And that is the wedge that is always used to drive in to separate Malaysians, So I guess all politics, we should start moving away, and this is up to political parties to start moving away from that. I would like to see Malaysian leaders who speak for all Malaysians. But it's also an unpopular thing to say because we are still so caught up with identity politics. Like when it's crazy because there was an accident that happened in Batu Kawan just even last week, and the person who passed away was a Malaysian, and the one who caused the accident was a foreigner. And there were in that video you could hear someone asking whether the person who died was one of us or not. That sort of language is so normal when you see an accident, and we all have spoken about it, and we've seen memes and satires of when you see an accident, the first thing is like, oh my gosh, is it a Chinese or an Indian or a Malay, or something like that. Until and unless we ourselves also move away from that sort of identity politics, it's hard. It'll be very difficult to change. So it is sometimes politicians who play to the gallery. Your constituents look at you as a hero of that ethnicity, that group, that religion. Whether you want to rock the boat there, do you still want to, that if you continue this this performance of yours as this sort of a leader, you know that you will be voted in again because that's your identity. But if you want to be more inclusive, it would mean that you will ruffle some feathers. Is that a risk you want to take or not? Even the death penalty, Father, it's such an unpopular topic. No one wants to really talk about it, but it's something that I've raised every single parliament sitting. I have one question that I dedicate to my oral question on the death penalty. It's perseverance also at the end of the day. But yeah, it 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 has to start with the people, and it must also be the conversation must be also mooted by the government.
Change, I'm sure, is very, very difficult, and not just for MPs to lead the way, but I'm sure even
Yeah,
Father agree, leaders in everywhere, in our communities, in our workplace, even in the
in
homes, I
the
suppose.
world,
Yeah,
in the world. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we have another question. It's from Neville Masang. Good morning, Nev. Does OIB have any regrets in sacrificing her own ambitions against her sacrifices for the Rakyat? What motivates you, OIB?
Oh, no regrets. No regrets at all. Serving the people. I just I have my own benchmark. I have my own expectations of how I conduct myself that I need to live up to. Sometimes we are very hard on ourselves on how we do things and when we do things and the way we do it. But no regrets. I wouldn't call it sacrificing lah, because this is what I enjoy also doing. My my party inspires me, my family inspire me, my constituents inspire me. It is very challenging, but what motivates me would be I don't think I could give up politics and wake up the next day and feel good and happy and like, oh my gosh, I'm finally away from all that. I will be constantly worrying about things, like how is this panning out? What is happening with this? How like specific issues, like if you want to think about the schools in your constituencies, how are the schools managing post COVID, and how are the children? Do they have food to eat or not? And what about, women who are victims of domestic violence? And what about sorry, men and women who are victims of domestic violence? What about terrorism? What about so many things? So I think those are the things that keep me motivated. Is because I know that change is possible. It will not come easily. It will not come fast, and it needs a lot of work. And that is where you throw yourself in. It is the work, like how teachers go to school every day. I'm sure you have good days and bad days, and your what you need to do is to groom your students or your children. Teachers call their students children, at the end of the day. So what you want to teach and give your children in your classrooms, what are they going to take home, what kind of adults are they going to be? It's an ongoing process. So it's not like MLM get rich quick scheme, that you join politics for 5 years because you think all these things can be done in 5 years. So yeah, short-term goals, long-term goals, these are the things that keep you going. At the end of the day, it is just to make sure that there are lesser people um, who will fall below the poverty line, lesser people who are disadvantaged, lesser people who will suffer under the system. You cannot totally eradicate, unless maybe, I don't know, has Finland totally eradicated poverty? I'm not sure. But if they have, I'm not surprised. But yeah, it's challenging. You challenge yourself every day. You get up every day and ask yourself, what am I going to do today that can change the system? And this is something I tell myself, Father. All my life, I've always been battling with my weight. You can ask all my friends, and I've always said that, oh, I don't want to eat this today because I'm watching my weight. And they're like, you've been watching it for years, you know? And then I tell myself, I keep expecting different results doing the same thing, you know? Yeah, it's like, you every day is like a cheat day. You tell yourself, oh, but 2 days ago wasn't my cheat day. Yeah, but the next 3 days are your cheat days. You're not gonna go anywhere with that. And then I start asking myself, every every time Parliament convenes, I have all my questions I ask, and somehow I kind of expect the same type of answers also. Only because the system also hasn't changed with administration, with how money is given, middlemen along the way. So if that hasn't changed, how am I going to bring change to my constituency? Then you start to find other ways of how you can assist them to actually improve the system. In fact, 2 days ago, I sat down with the Minister for Human Resource and his deputy, and I told him, I said, okay, lah, YB, let's talk about employment. You know, you are thinking about construction companies, manufacturing, peladangan. Okay, we understand big businesses, big industries. I'm talking about coffee shops that are closing. Your kedai runcit that is closing. Your small your barber shops that are closing. These are the small guys that you need to also keep in your perimeter of vision. Telling us, I think the government is probably considering maybe allowing refugees to work in construction. But I believe, with all respect to my good friends who are in this business, I think they have maybe the financial standing to bring in workers from other countries to work in the construction line. Perhaps we can assist our SMEs or smaller industries by allowing maybe even refugees or undocumented migrants, and we help to legalize them, in that way, as far as documentation is concerned, and then allow them to work, which means they don't have to depend on the government for handouts and aid. They can sustain themselves and their families. Why they are here, how they are here. They are here already lah. You have to manage them. You want to say send them back and all. And I think this is also where political education comes in. People don't know Vienna Convention. They don't know that when a country, when refugees who are political refugees or economic refugees or even refugees because of a natural disaster or war, who come to your country, no one wants to leave their country, no matter how nice the other country is that they're going to. And for them to leave, their souls are tied to the earth, they're tied to their motherland, and they have to cut that and come to another country. It's difficult, they're not here on vacation, they're not here on a holiday. So our job is to manage them. Either they're here on transit and all that. So, in this sense, I find that engaging with ministers behind the parliament bubble, talking to them, giving them ideas. I actually wrote down on a piece of paper. I said, "Nah, it's difficult for you to write, isn't it? YB, come, I write for you." So I told them, I think this is what you should do. Look at what Suhakam has proposed. Look at ILO policies. Talk to those people who are working with the refugees and that community. Engage with them, and then find out they're not going to push for you to give citizenship to everyone. No, they just want them to be alive, and not to die because of starvation in your country. I mean, this is Malaysia, not the North Pole. So yeah, sometimes engaging and talking to them, having small meetings, it goes a long way lah. It helps to maybe open their eyes and their perspective. Oh, I never thought about it that way, sort of thing. Yeah. So that also is one of the factors that keeps me motivated.
YB, on the flip side of motivation, just when you face setbacks or like shocking events, like just like a couple of weeks ago and all that, how do you deal with it, and does your faith help you in supporting all the setbacks that you faced throughout the journey?
Yes, but this one helps me more also. Oh, I really I love bakwa, so I went and bought different flavors of bakwa and just sat and ate, just like that. No bread, no rice, just like that. Yeah, chocolates and ice cream. Yeah, I splurged on ice cream. I paid a ridiculous amount.
One small vice, and food is your vice. Is all right. It's okay.
Yeah, except that it's not small, father. Yeah, so
in our comment section, we are receiving so many accolades. Just congratulating you for the courage, the work that you do.
Thank you.
And the support.
Oh.
I think one of the things that I think we're coming to an end very quickly.
Oh.
We can go on and we can have you again, I'm sure. I look at it as you would be the younger generation of politicians that have come up. I mean, I grew up with those I've heard when growing up, they are now all senior politicians, senior parliamentarians, and you would be the next generation. And I just read yesterday, one professor of, I think, social science, he says that we need more younger politicians,
Yeah.
parliamentarians to come up. What
I
would your
agree.
advice, what would your advice be? I know for people, in order, you said you didn't want to be an armchair critic, you wanted to be involved. Who are listening to us, our young people who are listening to us, what advice would you give them if they want to come in and to make a change? I think this famous saying that goes, "Be the change that you want to see in the world."
Gandhi said that, I think, yeah?
I think Gandhi
Yeah,
said that.
yeah.
How would you advise if people want to get involved into politics to make a change in society, whether it's politics or whether it's NGO or to
Right.
be an agent of change? What would your advice be?
First, you have to be involved in that NGO or the group or even in a political party. You have to put yourself out there. You have to join them for activities. Sometimes it's even like a company. Like, for example, if you see a worker who has been working very hard and you see a very dedicated worker, you as the boss will look and say, okay, maybe I'll call him and talk to him, and maybe I will challenge him a bit more and see whether he can cope with that or not, and see how he addresses issues, situations, problems. And that would then be a stepping stone, for you to handle, manage, to earn that sort of trust and confidence, and also to be vocal about your thoughts and your ideas. It's not very easy, but if you have that dream and you have a vision for yourself, for the country, then you have to step up. I think it was Sheryl Sandberg in her book Lean In. Sometimes a lot of us are pushed into the shadows because there are others who take up the spotlight. But I guess the younger generation, as I've seen in Parliament Digital and on other platforms, they are not afraid to speak up on what they believe in, to criticize, and uh, to actually speak their mind. And I think that is very important, not to be just henchmen and just to follow the tide and then just not rock the boat, sort of thing. Sometimes to get things done, you have to rock the boat. Think outside the box, read a lot, empower yourself with knowledge, speak to people, and then make your own judgment and your decision. um, I still have the public, I still have activists, I still have politicians telling me to forget about some of the campaigns that I'm working on. Even marital rape also. I have also had some people who say, yeah, don't waste your time with marital rape, it's very difficult. But it was also very difficult when we criminalized domestic violence. It was difficult when we allowed men and women to vote. So, and it was not easy at that, and it was a different time and era. So for the young people out there, particularly also a shout out to women. I'm sure many of them would have seen what happened on Monday and thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to be subjected to this. I might be called other things and I don't know how to cope with it, and I have a different coping mechanism and all that. And that is why I was hoping that this amendment that I'm mooting will protect men and women, the younger generation who come, so that they will not be subjected to what I went through. I should be the last MP to have endured that. But again, it is not easy. It's politics. It is not, and it can move. And that sometimes you have very stormy days. Sometimes you have sunny days, and sometimes the weather is just perfect. So you need to be able to adjust, to persevere. I mean, if you look at somebody like Lim Kit Siang, 50 years in politics, and I have seen him, and from where I was sitting, because now we sit at the gallery. So I looked at him sitting on the opposition bench, and I told myself, I said, all his life he has been sitting on this side. And just for 22 months, he moved and sat this side. And now he's back on the opposition bench again. For him who sits, because you're sitting in parliament is ranked by your seniority in your party, etc. So he sits in the front row. For him to be sitting there and looking at his opponents like, 50 years I sat on this side, I'm back here again. What keeps him going? And he's faced far worse challenges than me. To have your banner put on the ground and have people urinating on them, I don't know how I would deal with it. probably like take time off and just buy like a bag of bakwa and chocolates and ice cream and like, okay, everybody, this is my bakwa time. But then I don't know, yeah. But when I see him, I'm like, yo, how does he do it? I guess having support from friends, and I had friends who called me, family members who called me, whom I shared with, and who gave me a lot of support and motivation, and not forgetting total strangers out there, lah. Really, I'm so humbled by the support, and stories that I'm getting from mothers who are sending me, oh, my daughter is also dark, and I fear now if she will grow up in this sort of toxic environment, But yeah, we have to make sure that we keep pushing this kind of racist and sexist into a corner, and with that reduce the number. You cannot absolutely eliminate them. I almost said annihilate, but then, but then yeah, there will always be. Look at America. It's supposed to be cradle of some of the biggest democracies, etc. They also had such a bloody past, a bad past with racism, and just when you thought that they have actually buried that, you find that the whole thing has stirred up again, which I don't know whether it's a diversion or not to how they've badly managed COVID-19. But those are just my thoughts in my head that accidentally now has come out of my mouth. But then you know what I mean. So yeah, it's countries are you still have racism in a socially democratic country like Norway, and India has one of the best democracies in the world. They have an Equality Act, and yet the gender inequality is just appalling in India. The hate crime, the violence against girls and women there is just, yeah, they've taken it to another level, but then yeah, so this keeps you going, that you will, and the pendulum swings. Always, my mother always told me it's always like a pendulum, and now I see it's very disturbing because very right wing, very conservative, that type of leaders are back in power. There was a time that the pendulum swung the other side, and you saw a lot of very liberal, progressive, sort of center left, green party sort of leaders in power. But if you look at the Philippines, if you look at Sri Lanka, I mean, you find that sort of dictatorship coming back, even in Europe. So it's a little bit worrying for us, as we know what happens in superpower countries. They have a great spillover effect on other countries that are not just economically dependent on them. We have that relationship, but it makes us then be quiet on violations of human rights in our countries. For example, like in China, voices of dissent go missing. They just disappear. But how is Malaysia going to say anything when they're one of our biggest trading partners? These are realities. So young people, it's good to open up your mind, your horizon, read, watch good talk shows, and yeah, understand and read about what happens in other parts of the world. Keep abreast with what is happening in the country. Be open to views, and you make your judgment, because you cannot make judgments based without data, without information. You must make what did they say, learned judgments, and as a politician, you need to make that sort of decisions, because what you say affects everyone, who have put their trust, confidence, and given you the opportunity to be their representative, to voice out for them what they cannot do or don't know how to. Yeah, it's a big responsibility, but if you're game to take that on, then you'll persevere. Yeah.
I think you just committed a big crime here. You forgot to say that watch good talk shows like Catholics at Home.
Amazing talk shows like Catholics at Home.
Anyway,
Yes,
just some last thoughts, comments I just want to add. When I was young, playground was the street. You play in the road. So when cars come, you move aside. You put a badminton net, and then some people shout, "Hey, you want your father's road?" And so you're standing here. But you have actually a street named after your father.
yes.
You can actually say this is my father's road. But I guess for you, starting off in politics is always under the shadow of your father, because the name that you carry. But I just want to add, I think you have moved out of the shadow and you are in your own shadow now.
Oh,
For what you, yeah, and I think
thank
you stand
you,
your own
Father.
ground. Keep it
Yeah.
up.
Thank you, Father.
Keep the cause going. And I think we should never lose hope in whatever
Thank
we are
you.
doing.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. There will always be people who will challenge that. There will always be the minority who will speak the loudest to make you doubt that, should I still invest or not? Should I still keep going or not? Maybe somebody else will take over lah. I'm done already. There will always be that people. But you must know that you cannot give in to that. And there will always be the minority. Because of the siege mentality, they fear the unknown, and they don't want change. They like status quo, and you must take that as a challenge. Silence them and make them realize that you know, in the Malaysian context, you just cannot move forward if you keep holding on to that. Yeah,
So we hope to have you back soon. Kevin, over to you.
definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, YB. Just echoing Father's sentiments that, we're very glad that you are serving the community and our country, and we're glad of the work that you do for us. We've got a lot of comments on our chat coming in, from Cynthia, Anselm, Desmond, even Lavin from Perth. So, we could take this show on further longer, but, maybe we'll have you back for another time. There's lots more to talk
Thank
about. So,
you.
once again,
I'm so humbled
thank
by
you.
the support, really, and even to be considered by Father who reached out to me and invited me. Really, I'm just like a small potato, small kacang.
Maybe just to add,
Thank you.
as I said, if there are people out there who want to support you, I mean, of course, there are many ways of support. I'm sure they can support you through social media too. That's how I connected with you. Yeah.
Yes,
So you're,
yes,
you're on Facebook. Are you on
yes,
Instagram also?
yes. I'm
Yeah.
just started to, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook,
Yeah. So to our listeners out there, if you want to support her, at least you can
Thank you.
like her page and follow the good work that you're doing. Yeah, I think it's very
Thank you
important.
so much. Thank you, Father.
Okay, Father, maybe we can end with a prayer before we
As we
exit.
always do, let's end with a prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Lord, we thank you for this morning, for this opportunity to speak to a member of Parliament who has dedicated herself to serve you through the community. We not only pray for her, we pray for all parliamentarians. We pray for all politicians, that they may always serve for the common good of the people, so that we may continue to flourish, to grow, to be a sign in the world. So bless Kasthuri, bless all those who serve with her, continue to inspire them for the right cause, the truth, and for justice. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. Father,
Amen.
Son,
Amen.
Holy Spirit. Thank you for that, Father. And once again, thank you, YB. We hope to see you soon. Maybe we can have some bakwa together. And, best regards to the family.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bakwa is definitely on the cards. Banana leaf, bakute, bakwa, you name it. I'm game.
Fantastic. And for those of you watching, thank you for joining us this Saturday morning. If you like the show, give us a thumbs up, give us a love or something. And we hope to see you again in the next show next Saturday morning. So from all of us here at Catholics at Home and also YB Kasthuri Patto, we wish you a very good Saturday morning. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.